In the late 2000s and early 2010s, when vinyl was just starting to come back, there was one turntable that seemed to be everywhere. You could find it in department stores like Macy's and Kohl's, in supermarkets like Aldi and Lidl, in mail order catalogs like Heartland America, and of course online on various websites. It was a product of many different names and slightly different faces, sold under a plethora of brand names including Electro Brand, First Street, Grace Digital Audio, House of Technology, Innovative Technology, Marks & Spencer, Memorex, Prolectrix, Seal, Sharp, Silvercrest, Soundmaster, Technical Pro, Tevion, and Xenox. It was initially sold for as much as $200, but prices were quickly slashed to around $100, and then it was frequently discounted below that. Basic versions of it had several ungainly looking knockout plugs in the front panel, while fancier versions had a built-in MP3 recorder with a USB port and/or an SD card slot. And that was its main selling point, the ability to record and back up your old vinyl LP records to your PC.
Ready to bring your music collection into the digital age? Then check out this ingenious USB turntable from Memorex. If you've got piles of great music on vinyl LPs just sitting around and gathering dust, this unit brings them all back to life. Just like any standard turntable, the player spins any long-playing record or 45 single with all of the warm, high-fidelity sound you remember. Why spend hundreds or even thousands on CDs full of music you already own? Don't repurchase, record. Get your Memorex USB turntable today.
This catalog ad said, "Convert your old LPs to digital quality MP3s, burn them to CDs, and preserve them forever." And of course, they pile on the fear-mongering by saying, "Warning! Those old LPs are degrading with each passing day. Transfer them before it's too late." These turntables were all manufactured in China by a company called Zhongzhuan Litech Electronics Company Limited, and you can sell them under any brand name you want as long as you met the minimum order quantity of 2,000 pieces. These turntables were the subject of a scathing review by a website called Nosy, who criticized its all-plastic construction and ceramic cartridge with inferior sound quality, and they claimed it accelerates record wear by applying serious needle pressure, and it skipped frequently in their tests. So it's probably a foregone conclusion that these turntables are best avoided. But nonetheless, I wanted to try one out for myself and give my own review of it 15 years too late. So I found this one on eBay, still new in the original box. This one is by Innovative Technology, the company which later bought out the rights to the Victrola name, and it includes 3 free needles inside, just like the clubs in Brighton. The model number of this one is ITUT-201, and it has a date of 2008 on it. Inside the box is still sealed, and there are those 3 free needles it was talking about. Also in the box is a USB cable, a driver CD, and the owner's manual, which mostly just tells you how to install and use Audacity. The dust cover comes pre-installed, and underneath it is a sheet of very important instructions telling you to release the transport screw. If you opted for the fancier ITUT-301 model, it would have a built-in MP3 recorder with a control panel, a port for a USB thumb drive, and an SD card slot. But since this is the basic ITUT-201 model, the only thing on the front panel is the power button. And these knockout plugs hint at the possibility of there being an even fancier model with a strobe and a pitch control, although I've never seen one of these turntables with that feature. On the back, in addition to the USB output, is a permanently attached RCA line-level audio output cord. Since this has a ceramic cartridge, there is no option to switch it to a phono-level output. On the bottom are 4 rubber feet and some information stickers, including a serial number beginning with 0909, which probably means this was manufactured in September 2009. And there is the very common BSR-derived turntable mechanism, which has been used in millions of cheap record players and turntables since the mid-1980s. It is mounted on springs to absorb vibrations. No platter mat is included, but it does have rubber bumpers for the record to rest on. And it includes a 45 adapter, but no space to store it. Another very common sight is this Chuogenshi CZ800 ceramic cartridge, or most likely a Chinese knockoff of it, with a sapphire stylus. For the best results, you should take the opportunity to upgrade it to a diamond stylus. To start out with, I have the turntable connected to a pair of Bose Companion 2 powered speakers. And since it's the holiday season, here's an album I found at the thrift store. And I thought these buttons were just decorative, but they're actually functional. The stop button stops the turntable platter, and the play button starts it again, and the eject button automatically picks up the tone arm and returns it to the rest. So that's pretty neat. And the cueing lever gently lowers the tone arm onto the record, in case you're as ham-fisted at doing it by hand as I am. So it sounds pretty good through the speakers, but the true test will be a direct hookup of an audiophile quality album, such as Dale Jacobs' Cobra. Not terrible, but it's definitely a bit shrill and lacking in bass, just like that review said, due to its use of this cheap ceramic cartridge. And as for the claim of it destroying records, I'm measuring a tracking force of around 6.8 grams, which is definitely on the heavy side and a bit above this cartridge's recommended maximum of 6 grams. The back of the tone arm does have a provision for a counterbalance spring, but none was installed. And as for the claims of it skipping frequently, it did skip a few times when playing Metallica's Black Album. And on Daft Punk's Homework album. But those two records really push the limits of vinyl mastering and are well known for skipping even on some pretty good turntables. So when playing almost anything else, you shouldn't have a problem. In terms of speed accuracy, you can see on my strobe disc that at 33 1/3 RPM, it's playing noticeably too fast. And at 45, it's a bit closer but still a bit too fast, and I tested 78 with another strobe disc, and that's playing fast as well. There are no externally accessible trimmers, so to adjust that speed we'll need to remove the bottom cover, and helpfully the screws you need to take out to do that are marked with arrows. With the bottom cover removed, you can see the power transformer, the power supply board, the power switch, the main circuit board. This little circuit board controls the auto return function, and this board at the back has the USB encoder chip on it. And here is the turntable mechanism. And here are the speed adjustment trimmers. The ones directly in the motor marked L and H are for 33 1/3 and 45 RPM respectively. And there's a separate trimmer on this little circuit board here for 78. The motor was made by Hijet, and it also has a date code of September 2009. And the USB encoder chip is a Burr Brown PCM 2900E, which supports sampling rates up to 48 kHz. When adjusting the speed, you want to have the turntable actually playing a record, so I have it propped up on a pair of VHS tapes so I can reach underneath with my adjusting tool, and you want to start with the highest speed first and work your way down. So first I'll do 78. Right about there looks perfect. You can see where I'm pointing with my tool. The strobe dots are not moving left or right, so the speed is correctly set. Now on 45 it's still a bit fast, so let me try adjusting it. Just took a little tweak and now it looks like it's pretty much perfect. Now I'll switch to 33 and see how that is. That is also still a bit fast, and give that another tweak. I think right about there is just about perfect. So now the speed is correctly set. And I hope I never have to do that again, because when you take off the bottom, the springs that hold open the dust cover fall out, and it's a pain to get them back in. As for using the turntable for its intended purpose of digitizing your records, I plugged in the USB cable, and Windows automatically loaded the driver. It shows up as a USB audio codec microphone. But one gotcha is that by default it sets itself to one channel. So if you actually want to transfer your records in stereo, you have to go into the control panel under Sound and Recording, click on USB audio codec and Properties, go to Advanced and change it to 2-channel 48 kHz. And then hit OK. And you might also want to go here and check the box that says listen to this device, and if necessary you can change the level lower or higher depending on the loudness of the records you're converting. Yeah, I'll definitely have to reduce that recording level because it's badly overmodulated and it's clipping on my meter here. Well, I reduced the gain by 6 dB, so the audio is no longer clipping on the computer, but it looks like it's clipping internally in the USB converter chip, because look at how brick-walled that waveform is, even though we're not anywhere close to 0 dB on the meter here. That brick-walling is definitely not doing this turntable any favors in terms of its already pretty mediocre sound quality, but nonetheless I'll give you a sample of using it to digitize a record through its USB output.
When the winter winds start blowing, it's just nature's way of showing Hanukkah will soon be here. I recall when I was younger, how I used to yearn and hunger for this special time of year. Hanukkah, Hanukkah, a holiday that drives away all care.
If that audio wasn't so overmodulated, I was going to suggest maybe applying some EQ in software to make it sound better. But as is, there's really no way to undo that clipping and distortion unless you use an alternate means to digitize the audio, but then that defeats the whole purpose of buying a USB turntable. The only good thing I can say about this turntable is that it won't ruin any of your records, because you'll try it once, realize how bad it sounds, and then never use it again.